We are so happy that you have chosen to spend the International Day of Happiness with us here at Proof Positive. We come together today to talk about a very important topic. You're here because you likely believe everyone deserves happiness. And so I get to open us today with a call to build a world where well-being wins. Because we don't believe happiness is for the lucky few. We don't believe happiness is out of reach for anyone. In fact, we know that everyone deserves happiness. If you don't know me, my name's Katie. I have the privilege and the honor of being the Chief Wellbeing Officer here at Proof Positive. And I believe passionately in my heart, in my bones, in the potential and the power of human flourishing. I know that when we equipped people with the science and skills of happiness, flourishing is possible. I know that people want happiness. I know that it's a universal goal. I know that we need to do better in achieving happiness in lots of ways. So I get to spend most of my time thinking about how do we help the autism community, those of us that want to achieve higher levels of well-being, do so. And on my mind lately has been this question. Leading up to the International Day of Happiness, I can't help but wonder, if happiness is a universal right, if everyone deserves happiness, why then are we still leaving people out? So to start today, I would love for you to just call to mind one person, someone you care deeply about, who you wish could be happier. As we talk through today and we learn and we listen to the many experts that will be with us, keep that person top of mind because we want to bring them into the conversation. We want to make sure they're at the forefront of the conversation. So if happiness is a universal right, why leave people out? And not only is it a universal right, for the first time in history, we have a global happiness movement happening. So here's the good news. There are organizations all over the globe committed to studying happiness. We are seeing governments begin to prioritize happiness with measures like gross national happiness, gross national well-being. That's right, there are governments around the globe. Some of you live in countries where your happiness is measured and considered in policy decisions. And when we hear words like global, united, international, we might also be biased to think that means inclusive, that surely that speaks about for and to everyone. So the best place to look to find out is the World Happiness Report. For 15 straight years, Gallup, Oxford, and the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network has come together to publish a very meaty report on happiness, the World Happiness Report. They have covered incredible topics. They have risen awareness around why we need to study happiness, about why this needs to be a science, why this needs to be considered in policy and as a progress measure. If we look at just the last 5 years, they've studied everything from resilience in a global crisis to the social foundations of happiness. These reports have told us who suffers most in a global crisis, who experiences the greatest disruption to services, education, and what impact that has on their well-being. In 2022, we learned how to measure well-being at scale. So the policymakers around the globe that are trying to figure out, how do we consider happiness in education? How do we consider happiness in our decisions? Now have good guidance on how to do that at scale. Some of my favorite data came in 2025 when they told us that, hey, the easiest way to combat the loneliness epidemic, eat more together. That's right, shared meals lead to happiness. So how many meals you eat with other people impacts your happiness. That's really good for us to know, because how many of us are sitting at our desks late at night or grabbing a quick bite and eating in the car on the way to soccer practice. Social foundations of happiness. So each of these reports has dug deep into a critical question and come up with really important answers. The science has been clear. Whether they're studying crisis or social inclusion, the report consistently tells us that the same things drive well-being, that we need deep social connection. One of my mentors and professors at Penn said you could sum up the entire field of happiness science in 3 words: other people matter, period. And the World Happiness Report says the same thing year after year. We need each other. We need social connection. Trust matters. Do we trust our institutions? Do we trust our neighbors? Do we trust the folks around us? Our health matters greatly. Support systems matter. And meaningful, engaged participation in our communities. So the science is clear. When people feel better, they do better. And there are certain things we need in order to feel better. When you look at these numbers, I don't know about you, but I feel hope, right? It's like in the last 5 years alone, 400,000 words written on the topic of happiness in this one report. They've analyzed over 250 figures, models, data sets. 100+ researchers around the globe are contributing to this one document. And it comes out in time for the International Day of Happiness. So it's March 20th is a great day. And yet, there's a small problem. Because I have personally read all 15 reports. And I have enjoyed everything I've learned. But there's been one thing missing: the mention of autism. In a global movement, in a world report over 15 years, not once has the word autism been mentioned. And we can zoom out even further, because there has not yet been a single meaningful mention of disability. So for 5 straight years, the world's leading authority on all things well-being, how it ought to be measured, how it ought to be considered, has failed to include 1.3 billion people in the conversation. And it might be easy to stop and sort of go, what's wrong with the happiness researchers? Let's just blame them. Let's try and get them to change. Because clearly the global happiness movement is leaving autism out of the conversation. But I've been in behavior change long enough to know that if you want things to change, it's often best to look inward, to ask, what can I do differently? What can we do differently? And I'm here to tell you that the global happiness movement leaving autism out of the conversation is only half of the story. So we know the autism community is not okay. We know that the outcomes in our community are unacceptably low. Many of us are here on this call or watching this video because we've already committed to trying to reverse these trends. People with autism are significantly more likely to be depressed, anxious, feel lonely, and be unemployed. And that's just some of it. We know that we can, and we must do better. So let's start with the good news. In 2025, there was a community of autism well-being survey. Parents, clinicians, educators, and autistic individuals alike agreed that happiness is their top priority. That's amazing. Over 1,000 people were surveyed, and across all stakeholders, parents, clinicians, educators, autistics, who, for those of us that have been in IEP meetings, as either a parent, a clinician, an autistic, or an educator, know sometimes agreement isn't where we start. Wow, was I blown away to know that happiness brings us all together, that happiness is our top priority. And we hear this. We hear this from clinicians and teachers that tell us, you know what? no matter what a parent wants for their child, no matter how many parents I talk to, they all have one thing in common. That whether they are just hoping their child can learn basic social greetings or they're hoping their child will get into college, they want their child to be happy. And as clinicians and educators, we want that too. So this survey really confirms what I think many of us know, which is, of course, what more do we want for the people in our lives than happiness? We also have an incredibly vast landscape in the autism community, complicated at times, but here it is. In just the United States alone, 7 million people diagnosed, 50 billion spent annually, 10,000 plus articles published in the last couple of years on the topic of autism, ranging from behavioral sciences to neurosciences to genetics. There is a growing landscape of what's going on here, how do we help, what do we need, what services and supports are necessary. And yet, we land back at another problem. With all of the money spent, with all of the services delivered, all of the supports in place, we do not have a single mandated outcome for happiness. There is not a single process in any of our special education law. There is not a single process in how we evaluate adult services that mandates happiness as an outcome. We all know this. We have watched insurance-funded autism services balloon in the last decade. And yet, to date, I sit in working groups with clinicians who are desperate to teach the science and skills of happiness, but they are met repeatedly with the concept that happiness is not deemed medically necessary. Which is interesting because we know that when people feel better, they do better, that of course happiness needs to come first, but not a single mandate, not a single medically necessary agreement. So the problem is that while autism and the landscape has grown and it's digging deeper into the nuance, and we've made tremendous advances in understanding how to support people at the individual level, we have failed to center happiness as a primary outcome for success. So there is a gap. There is a growing gap, which tells us the happiness movement must evolve to include autism. This is work that we've already started doing. How do we raise our hands? How do we get attention for, hey, we have to be included in this conversation? And simultaneously, how do we help parents, clinicians, autistic individuals start to prioritize happiness? They have told us it's their top priority. How do we shift to actually make that a reality? Without closing this gap, without ensuring that happiness moves to the forefront of the conversation, that happiness is accessible to everyone, we risk building a future where happiness and well-being reach everyone except those who need it the most. So where there's a gap, where there's a problem, there's always an opportunity. So that means that in the years and decades to come, I expect to start seeing autism included in the study of happiness. That is how we make this a truly global movement. We can't leave out 1/6 of the population and call it global. So autism is going to be included in the happiness science. Simultaneously, we are going to elevate happiness as an outcome to ensure that every individual has the opportunity to flourish. We have to come at this approach on both sides. We have to start to close this gap because we're here today in an effort to raise awareness that everyone deserves happiness, including the autism community. Lots of people around the globe are celebrating the International Day of Happiness. without recognizing that people are being left out. Many people will be focused on who's the happiest country in the world. And we want them focused on, but what about the 1.3 billion people who deserve happiness that aren't with us? So we're going to start to close that gap. And you might wonder, why now? This moment is not accidental. I just told you that we're 15 years into the World Happiness Report. I got a degree in positive psychology about 15 years ago as well. This science is gaining momentum. When the field of positive psychology started 20 years ago, many people sort of shrugged it off as unnecessary, a little hooey. And here we are 20 years later with governments deeming happiness is necessary in their policy-making decisions. So we are gaining momentum. We are understanding more and more that the science of happiness is needed. If you are paying attention today, you know that globally we need this movement, that young people are more depressed and anxious than any generation before them, that older people are lonelier than any generation before them, that we need to start to sort of work in this space. So the global happiness movement is gaining momentum. It is picking up steam. Governments, educators, and systems are looking for frameworks to hang on to. They're looking for guidance. They too want to advance happiness, and the time is now to say, this is what we need in funding. This is what we need in policy. We need insurance companies to guarantee happiness as medically necessary. And the science is ready to scale. I told you that over the last 5 years, the World Happiness Report has reported on how we measure at scale, how we influence well-being at scale. And there's so many cool new technologies, and how do we use social media and the internet and now AI to really look at science at scale, huge data sets, so that we can build a world where well-being is accessible to all. And I think most importantly, we are listening to the autism community ask for change. We are hearing words like compassion more than ever before. We are hearing words like neuroaffirming, strength-based, flourishing, quality of life. We are hearing people ask for change in intervention, in treatment, in how we even think about autism as it relates to the individual and their identity. So we are listening to the autism community say, it's time for change. It's time to prioritize happiness. It's time to focus on what's right with us. It's time to focus on helping us achieve flourishing, well-being, and high quality of life. So the question becomes, who's going to close that gap? Who's going to work to bring the science of happiness together with the autism community? And the answer is simple: us, all of us. So by listening to this, by being on this, you are a part of the Autism Wellbeing Alliance. We at Proof Positive are the leading global nonprofit working in this space. We are dedicated to bringing together like-minded people who want to see a world where well-being is accessible to all. So welcome. We are so happy that you're with us. We are so happy that you've chosen to join the Autism Wellbeing Alliance, because we've got huge work to do. And it all started with one young man. So this is Dylan. His family are the founders of Proof Positive. And when Dylan was young, he, like many people, faced some challenges. And his family did what most families do. They chased the absolute best they could find for him. And this quote is what his mom, Christina, shared with us after she saw the turnaround in him as a human when we started to prioritize happiness. So Christina said, "We used to believe that when our son was successful, he would find happiness. But the harder we worked toward reaching the traditional goalposts of autism treatment, the further away both of those things felt. When we began incorporating positive psychology, everything shifted. His skill acquisition skyrocketed, and even more importantly, so did his self-esteem. We had it backward. When our son found happiness, success followed. When our son found happiness, when Dylan found happiness, success followed. And I've had a privilege of working with Dylan for the last 11 years and being in relationship with him. And when we say success followed, prior to learning the science and skills of happiness, Dylan had been deemed a non-reader with significantly limited language, who had no friends, limited interest, and was in a self-contained classroom. Today, Dylan reads at a fourth grade level. He loves science experiments. He's talking with his friends about March Madness in a group text as I'm presenting. Dylan has not only sort of found happiness and joy and pride in his accomplishments, so many of the things his family was told he would never do became accessible when he was thriving and flourishing. And sure enough, we watch him day in and day out prioritize his own happiness now. This is a young man at 18 years old that will ask for meditation, that keeps a gratitude journal daily, full of pictures of things that make him happy day to day. So Dylan is the face of our work. Dylan is who has shown us that autistic flourishing is possible and worth fighting for. So in deep gratitude to our founders, they make this work possible, and Dylan for motivating us every day. They gave us a simple mission: spread the science, skills, and stories of happiness in and around the autism community. We are honored to work on this mission. And I want to tell you why we believe the science is critically important. The science of happiness is how we ensure that human flourishing is understood and possible. It's how we understand what actually leads to better outcomes and what might not. And so ensuring that autism is represented in the global well-being research means that we are in those data sets, that we are in the models, that we are letting people with autism be a part of the science, which then tells us what we need. So in order to truly understand happiness at scale, that scale must include all of us. Why the skills of happiness? This is where I spend most of my time, is what are the practical, simple, evidence-based tools that boost happiness? And we know that when we empower educators, clinicians, families, and autistic individuals with these tools in real-world settings, their outcomes shift. That we can boost their happiness, we can increase their relationships, we can increase their well-being. And these are accessible tools. At Proof Positive, we are continuing to work to make sure that these tools are truly accessible. And this is why autism has to be in the conversation. If the tools created, if the tools studied, if the practices that improve well-being are inaccessible to parts of the population, we haven't done our job. So it's our work to make sure that everyone has access to the skills of happiness. Stories change lives. Stories shape the global conversation. And we know this from so many disenfranchised populations that when you are not seeing yourself in stories, it's hard to imagine the outcomes. So we have to bring visibility, voice, and the possibility of what flourishing can look like to life in stories. We want the lived experience of autistic individuals and their communities told in big, powerful ways. I just shared Dylan's story with you in 2 minutes, and there are still times that I think about his story and get goosebumps. We know the movies, the documentaries, the articles, the books we read that change us sort of at the heart level, that inspire us, that motivate us. These stories are particularly necessary now because we are speaking to autistic adults that tell us we don't actually know if happiness with autism is possible. We were raised in a system, in a society, in a community that told us we were wrong or broken or focused on our deficits. And so we have to start to tell the stories of autistic flourishing, of autistic happiness, because we need to send a different message. We need to tell this community that we see you, that we hear you, that we know that there is the possibility of flourishing, and we're going to help make that possible. So we're just getting started. We started about 4 years ago. We are so thankful to every single one of you that has joined the Alliance, taken a well-being survey, downloaded a resource, or visited our website. We are so thankful for those of you that interact with us on social media because we need you to help propel this message, to help push the science, share the skills, tell the stories. Because that brings us back to today, the International Day of Happiness, which means the 2026 Global Happiness Report is out. So, did it mention autism? No. That makes 15 straight years where we've been excluded from a critically important conversation. We've been excluded from a conversation around happiness, around what will bring us happiness, how we can measure our happiness, how we can advance happiness in the work we're doing. So if we can't rely on the global movement, then we're going to start local. We're going to start where we are today. Today, we are going to do the work to begin to close that gap. These are the faces of the folks who have agreed to help us carry out a 12-hour summit to say, hey, it's time to look. It's time to pay attention. It's time to dig in on happiness and autism. So many of you know these faces or know some of these faces and are excited to hear them talk. Curran's going to kick us off today, and she is going to tell us why stories are absolutely critical to social change. She has built her life on telling stories that motivate social change. Peter has been working to advance well-being across the lifespan since before I knew the word autism. He has been a dear mentor to me, a good friend to me, and he is going to, with his colleague Angela, talk about why well-being is critically important across the lifespan. We're going to hear from Denise about how you actually create physical spaces that make flourishing and happiness possible. And Jessica's going to talk about autistic joy, and Zach and Lynn are going to talk about meeting people where they are, video games. How do we bring happiness and well-being into the gaming space so that we can advance happiness there? Harry's going to talk about awe, what happens when we expand our minds and experience the profound sense of awe, that feeling of looking at a sunset and just wondering, how is that possible? Wow. Rick's going to talk about how he uses these skills in crisis settings and how even in the toughest of times, we can look to the science of happiness to help people feel better so that they can do better. So lots of fun coming. Jessica and Jody are going to talk to us about well-being in the workplace and the importance of measures. And I've learned more in a few brief conversations with Jody Wilson about why our work is important than I could ever have hoped for. So we've got a great day in store for you today. We are so happy you're here because it's going to take all of us. Every single one of us in this room watching this recording is part of the system. If we are to build a world where well-being wins for all, it takes us all. So no matter how you identify, autistic, parent, educator, clinician, we need you. Community member, we need you. I have started saying that the autism community is your community. The rates are so high that Everyone, whether you work in the community and you're serving autistics who come into your coffee shop, or you're an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or a colleague, the autism community is your community. We need all of us. I asked you to start today by calling to mind someone that you care deeply about, someone that you would like to be happier. And I would like to give you just a moment to now think about what is one thing you can do today to help that person be happier. And I'm going to give you a few practical ideas. One, if this person is able to receive a text message, I highly recommend when we end today, you take out your cell phone and you send them a gratitude text. You take a moment to reflect on what do you most appreciate about this person, and you tell them in a text. Gratitude texts bring people to tears. They're something we should be sending most days. How quickly do we pick up the phone to say, hey, don't forget to get, or where are you, or what are we doing about this? But do we pick up the phone to say, thank you? Do we pick up the phone to connect? So one option is take a moment and say thank you to someone else. Because on the International Day of Happiness, connection matters. Social connection is the key to happiness. Gratitude text. Jolts of joy. Many of you are familiar with a skill that we teach at Proof Positive called Jolts of Joy, the intentional act of triggering positive emotions. So think about the person that you've dedicated this day to and ask yourself, what is one small thing I could do to jolt joy for them? Maybe it's putting on their favorite song in the car. Maybe it's showing them a picture you know they love. Maybe it's referencing an inside joke you know will make them laugh. So send a gratitude text. Be a jolt of joy for someone. And if nothing else, we all need to eat today. Can you share a meal with that person? We know that shared meals build social connection, and social connections build happiness. So shoot a quick text. Be a jolt of joy for someone else. Share a meal with someone. Those are 3 quick things you can do today to enhance happiness for yourself and your community. If you haven't already, join the Alliance. The QR code in the corner will help you. We are bringing together a community of people committed to advancing happiness and well-being in the autism community. Join us. We need you. We need you to be a part of this conversation. We need you to help us close the gap, and today is just the beginning. If we want a world where well-being wins for all, we must build it together.